Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
Are you craving for that special meal that will entice your taste buds and leave you with lasting thrilling memories? Look no further. Spice Island Bulenga has got your answer. Natural, fresh and delicious juice, the best meals. Don't miss our daily specials from Monday to Sunday. Pizza Wednesday, Saturday Pizza Bonanza, you buy one and take two. Come dine with us and feel the experience. We are located at Prime Shopping Center in Bulenga, Mitiana Road. For inquiries, call us on 0704111720. Spice Island, we treat your cravings.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Our viewers, we cannot thank you enough for keeping it Digitalk. And when we have our shows, I would welcome you back from Justice Kanyahamba's show, which we had today morning, and now invite you and thank you for definitely tuning in to the Alternative Digitalk for our Afro-Caribbean show. It's a new show. It's been on for now, close to a month. And the purpose for which we had to have this show was to ensure that we connect with our sisters and brothers in the Caribbean who definitely have their roots and history from Africa. It takes place every 7 p.m. Ugandan time, but is also dependent on the guest that we host. Sometimes we have people in Guyana, sometimes now today we are having a guest from Suriname. So it depends. Sometimes we have people from people of Caribbean origin but living in states. So our times that side differ depending on the guests that we have. Today we are pleased to have a one Priscilla van Hekelen, whom I will invite later on after my co-host introducing himself, and then we shall dive into exactly what Miss Priscilla has for us. Roger.
Thank you so much, Mr. Norman. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon for those whose time is around 1 p.m. and good morning, I believe there are those whose time is in the AM. My name is Roger Sturiabwe, and I have the privilege today, alongside my colleague Norman Tumembise, to be in discussion with this person from Suriname. And today we want to look at the heritage of Africa, how some of the people in the Caribbean countries came about, how their descendants came from Africa, how they came to be there in the first place. And so we have a person today who's going to be talking to us about that particular issue. And so we will expect an engagement. And you can obviously contribute. You can comment on our social media platform, The Alternative Uganda on Facebook. And we'll be able to read your comment or question or contribution, whatever that will be. Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Okay, thank you once again. Priscilla, we hope you hear us. May you please say hello to our viewers in Africa, in particular East Africa and Uganda, where we are broadcasting from. It is 7 p.m. So even when you greet them with good evening, it also works. Please proceed and say hello to our viewers.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Priscilla van Hekelen Dawsa, all the way from Suriname. I greet you all respectfully, and I hope that we can have a great conversation about Suriname and especially people living in Suriname with African roots.
We want to go straight away and ask you, it's not going to be like a question and answer, but definitely you will add some bit of explanations in regards to any question that we shall pose to you, for purposes of our
Yes.
viewers understanding exactly every question that we shall have asked. If I may ask, may you please tell us who, the other name is confusing me. Maybe I can stop on to Priscilla Van. So the other one, I will leave it to you to pronounce it well. Briefly tell us about yourself, like your office, what you are in charge of, generally who Priscilla Van. The other name I will avoid it for now, and then we shall, that will help us move through and into our discussion.
Can hear the question quite well. Can you ask ask the question again, please? Because I can hear you quite clearly.
Oh dear, like
Good
who
afternoon.
is this Priscilla
My name
Van?
is
The other name,
Priscilla
like I
van
said, I'm going to
Hekelen
avoid it for purposes
Dawsa.
of avoiding
Uh,
pronounce it. So who is this Priscilla Van? As in, what do you do?
may you-
Your
what is
office,
it?
the mandate of your office, like that.
One more. Sorry, but I can't hear the question. Can you maybe say it louder because I can hear the question quite well.
Oh, you can. Okay, what we're asking here is about you, about
Uh-huh.
the Priscilla we are watching, and people that are, about the Priscilla that people are watching. What is your mandate as the director
Yes.
tourism, rather the deputy director in the Ministry of Tourism
Yes.
in Suriname, like you call it? Sorry, we are pronouncing it as Suriname. So Suriname, now we know it's Suriname. So what does your office do? What do you do? What's your mandate as an individual in that ministry?
Okay. So it's Suriname. That's the right name of the country. And I am a deputy director of tourism at the Ministry of Transport, Communication, and Tourism. And my focus is marketing and branding, which means I have to put in every effort to put Suriname out there as a touristic destination by showing the world the different touristic products and touristic destinations we have in Suriname. So my main goal is after my period as deputy director that more people will know about Suriname because right now we have lots of tourists coming in. About 60% comes out of Europe. So it's my job now to make sure out of the rest of the world, people also come to Suriname as tourists.
Yeah, that. Briefly, before I cross to my co-host, I would want to ask you about how did the Suriname come into existence? Was it there before
How
it
Suriname
was
has
called
come?
Suriname? Was it, I mean, so you take us through its formation, the tribes rather, and the entire, people that are living in that country. When did it get independence? So that kind of history about
Okay.
Suriname as a country.
Yes. So Suriname is a country. Of course, the first peoples which we have here were the Amur Indians, and in the 1600s, the Europeans started coming here. The first European to come here was Marshall from 1630, but he didn't stay for long. 1634, you had another European which came in, but they also didn't stay long, the Vries. And the one who stayed basically was Willoughby out of Barbados. They came to Suriname and they took over the country, which was already a country where Amur Indians lived. And in 1667, the Sealanders came in name of the Dutch, and they took over the country again. Between the period of between the period of 1630 and till the 1800s, we had like a shifting of either Suriname being in hands of the Dutch or in hands of the English. One of the times at when they signed a peace treaty and they switched Suriname, and New York. New York, which was New Amsterdam, became New York, and the Dutch could keep Suriname. And from that day on, we stayed as a Dutch colony till 1975. We gained our independence by collaboration, by talking about it, but interior in the country, we had, of course, protests or you could say disagreement between people who were for independence and between people who didn't want to be independent. So those discussions went on. But the population of Suriname is built on different ethnical groups. You have the Amur Indians, which were the first people in Suriname. Then you have the descendants of the Europeans who came after. Then you have African descendants. The African descendants were brought here as enslaved people. And some of them didn't stay enslaved. They ran away from the plantations and they became Maroons. So the African descendants are separated in two big groups, the city Creoles and the Maroons. And after that, you got the immigrants. In 1873, we got people out of India, which came to work here as immigrant. And the first one who came before the India people came from India, we had the Chinese already here from 1853. Though even before slavery was stopped, we already had Chinese immigrants coming in. As I already said, the Indian people came. After that, in 1890, the Japanese came. And in the 1900s, we even got some more Europeans who came as farmers. And so it's a very mixed group of people who are the foundation of this country. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's a good one. Briefly, I want to, we have rather read, there's something interesting. When I was reading somewhere, I found that the British sold Suriname to the Dutch, and that didn't come out properly. May you please give us more information about that transaction? What was it about? Does that mean that previously it had been the British colony and before independence, so there was some bit of now transferring the leadership and the entire leadership structure now to, you know, to the Dutch, and then the British got out of Suriname or something like that?
So the name, you mean how we got the name Suriname?
Proceed, like I can't hear you well. Maybe you could
I
answer
hear
me
your question. I don't hear your question quite clear.
somewhere, and we realized that previously it had, yeah, Suriname belonged to the British, and let alone they sold, and the write-up talks about selling, they sold it to the Dutch, and I wanted you to substantiate on that sale in quotes. Was it, as in how could the British sell a country to the Dutch? So yeah, that's something I wanted you to bring out clearly as a deputy director tourism, because I'm sure you have read, I mean, you know the history of your country. Has it been sold by the British to the Dutch?
I said we first had the British, Lord Willoughby, he was British, and that he was here in 1650. And 1667, the Dutch took over. But because our country, most of our rivers go to the Atlantic Ocean, you have more than one entry points. So during the Dutch period, the English successfully took over Suriname by coming in through one of the other creeks or entry points. They came through Kommerwijne River and they took over the country. And that's why we have different forts. Each time the country was taken over by another colonizer, another fort was built to protect the country more. And the last time the British had Suriname, I don't have the exact year, but the last time the British had Suriname, they did a switch. You know, when the colonizers fight amongst each other, then they have like a peace signing or a treaty signing. And during this peace agreement, they said the Dutch can keep Suriname and the British can keep New Amsterdam. New Amsterdam, it's where New York is now. So that's why when you go to New York, you see lots of buildings which are very Dutch built, or which you could also see in the Netherlands. So that's the switch. Came back in the hands of the Netherlands. So it was English, Netherlands, English again, Netherlands, one more time the English, and then the switch came and we stayed Netherlands, belonging to the Netherlands till 1975. In Suriname, in Dutch, we say stuivertje verwisselen, which means this period is called exchanging change, exchanging quarters, actually.
Rather, because I was like, our producer had put the Maroons Day, but you won't answer the Maroons Day question now. I want to first cross to my colleague, and he asks you rather, and then we shall come back, and then from my side, I will begin from there. You hear from Rogers, and he could have some questions for you as well.
My question. Good to have you, Miss Priscilla. Now, you had a lot of back and forth between the Dutch and the English. And now my question is, in the peace, you said there's a peace sort of agreement where now...
swapping cities.
Where in the swapping now, for you to be in a different under different authority. So in this period, did you get independence in that process? That because probably the British said now you can be ruled by the Dutch, the people had also to get some independence or some semblance of that? Or did you come to get the independence much later?
No, that's much later. So the independence was all the way in 1975, and we were that didn't have anything to do with our independence. Basically, we didn't even have a say in who was going to be our colonizer. It was between them, and as you know, the English had a very big float. We say it in Dutch. They had lots of ships. So they were one of the stronger when it became about fighting and so on. So it was strategic for the English to keep New York because they already had lots of colonies alongside New York. So it was just a political decision. It had nothing to do with our independence. When we got our independence in 1975, we already had like starting from 1866, we could already speak for a little bit, speak for ourselves because we had what we called coloniale staten, and these were a group of men, mostly who could like form a parliament ruling, etc., in the country. So our independence had nothing to do with the switching of our colonizers.
So now, the period around 1975 when you got your independence, was it now something you had to
Yes.
fight for on your own? Was it something you negotiated? Was it a fight, or did the Dutch just feel like they have been in the area for much longer and they feel like you deserve to get your independence? What were the circumstances about your independence in 1975?
Okay. So Suriname fought in the, they helped the Netherlands during each war. Each time the Netherlands went to war, Surinamese soldiers also went along and fought. And after we helped in the Second World War and other smaller wars the Dutch had, the Queen promised us that we would have interior independence. So we could.
Yeah. We
75.
kind of lose you, like you. Yeah, now we can hear. Yeah, yeah, proceed. We can now hear you.
Yes?
Yeah, it's well. Yeah, proceed.
Okay. So that was the first step, which meant we could have a parliament and we could talk about things in our country. That's the first step that was taken. And in 1975, we negotiated with the Dutch, with the Netherlands. Our government, we had a governor, they negotiated with the Dutch to get our independence. But in Suriname itself, it was a very difficult situation amongst the different ethnical groups because some groups didn't want to be independent. They said we weren't ready yet. And other groups said, no, we want the independence. It's time. So it became almost a fight in Suriname between, on the one side, the Creoles, you could say the blacks, and on the other side, um, the people from Indian descent and the Japanese people, of course. So it was a discussion, and um, um, it almost came out as a fight between the different ethnic groups who were pro and the others who didn't want to be independent.
Okay. You know, I had promised that as soon as my co-host asks you, I had this whole thing about the Maroons. Reading about them, and I am sure as day follows night that Priscilla, Van, yourself, you were a Maroon. That good years when
Yes.
you people had been brought into Suriname, that your tribe run away and hid into the forests, and as a mean to, you know, to fight the slave traders or something like that. What is that is too special about the Maroons? And like you even have the Maroons Day. Is it, if you do not mind, please share
Yes.
with us who are these Maroons, because you seem to be so key in the Suriname either culture, politics, and the rest. As far as I have read, it's that I found out that the Maroons maintained their black culture, and I could also quote that when it comes to producing, they have kept on, I mean, producing many children, having as many wives as they want, you know, keeping some language which shares some words with these West African countries. Kindly share with us about your tribe, the Maroons.
Okay. So when we talk about Maroons, we talk about people who are um, they are special kinds of people because Maroons are people who have mixed all of the strain they had out of Africa. And the Maroons are people who didn't accept the fact that they would be enslaved. So they ran away from the plantation. But they didn't just go away from the plantation and left the rest behind. When a maroon went off to the bushes, they stayed near the plantation. We call them saltwater Negroes when they were still near the plantation, and they came back and fought. They came back and fought and got themselves and free, helped others get free. And then they went into the bushes again and went in further and further. The first maroon group, which was formed in Suriname, is the Kondi. The Kondi maroon group is a maroon group which we don't see anymore. So we don't have that group anymore. The second group who was formed was the Samaka. The Samaka group is the group which, when you hear their language, you hear lots of Portuguese words. For example, mulher, which in Portuguese would be mujer. So you have lots of influence because they came straight from Jewish plantation. And why did they run away so fast? Because the Portuguese weren't as brutal as the Dutch. So when they came over from the Portuguese, from Brazil and so on, Hispaniola and that sort of places, when they were brought here, they saw, hey, this is not what we were used to. They fought against it and went away to the bushes. The other groups we have are the Matawai. The Matawai is a group formed out of the Samaka group. Matawai means I'm not happy. Matawai means I'm not agreeing with this. And the group was formed at Toida because they didn't want to be in peace with the colonial government because they said, I'm not doing that. One of the other groups is Okanisi. They, in Dutch, they call them Aukaners. And this group is also formed, the name they gave them is based on the treaty signed in, which was done on the 10th of October, 1760. They signed a peace agreement with the colony, the Dutch colonizers in 1760. So that's approximately 100 years before slavery was abolished. That's how powerful the Maroons were. The Samaka, they signed their treaty in September 1762. Other groups we have are Quinti, Pamaka, Aluku. Some of these groups didn't even sign a peace treaty. They were like, okay, you guys want it, but we don't want it, so we are not signing it. And this is how different maroon groups were formed. So we have 6 maroon groups in Suriname all of them speaking their own language with influence of English, African words, and also all of them have African traditions in their different tribes. Sometimes it looks like copy paste. It looks like they didn't even change anything about it. For example, they have apinti, which is the talking drum, as it's called in English. And if I play the apinti here, I can play it. But if I play the apinti here, or if I could play it, another person kilometers away from here can hear me and answer me. You have the Kumanti language, which is also from West Africa, Kumasi, and they have that language pure as it is. So if they go over to Africa and they speak the Kumanti language or the Luangu language, the people in Africa will understand it fluently because it's the same language they still have. Also, the religion, the traditional religion of Maroons, it's lots of African influence is in, and basically see African tradition again. I was born, for example, on a Friday, and that's why my name, for example, would be Afua. That's pure Africa. So we still have lots of tradition in Suriname amongst the Maroon. But not only the Maroons have African traditions, you also have the Creole people who also have the Winti religion. And in the Winti religion, you see certain African roots and African tradition back, and which is they mixed with Amerindian, which they mixed with Christianity. So it's basically a mix of ethnical elements. But the Maroons themselves, they fought for their freedom. The first Maroon group to sign a peace treaty did that in 1760, 10th of October. The second one did that on 19 September 1762. So we have been free people since then, actually, with our own government, with our own government structure, with our own way of um, dealing with village issues and structuring our villages tradition, the way we how do you say it? The way when you get bigger, the different rituals you have to pass through to become a full grown person, or how do you say it, you have teenager. So the different steps of becoming an adult are also traditions we still have from Africa.
Maybe has yeah you have
Before he comes in, I have a particular inquiry to make. I don't know if that is a right word to use. There are Maroons in Suriname. There are those in even the Dominican Republic, which I believe, I think the first Maroons actually began from the revolt in the around the 1522, the first revolution that was on the sugar plantation owned by a one Diego Columbus or something like that. So there are Maroons in your country, there are those in Puerto Rico, there are those in the Dominican Republic, there are even those in Jamaica itself. Are you all connected, or are all the Maroons connected? Because it seems you celebrate as a Maroons Day. Is it something you share across all the region of the Caribbean community?
Are connected. For example, the Jamaican Maroon Gamang, it's Miss Gloria Sims, and she is a Maroon Gamang in Jamaica. But the Maroon Gamang ship is something she gained while visiting Suriname. While visiting the Samaka tribe, the Gamang, which is governor for basically the governor of the Samaka group, the upper chief of the Samaka group, the one we had before the Gamang we have now, he saw in her a strength, a spirit, and based on that, they told her to do the different rituals which was needed to become Gamang, and she became the Gamang. So she is a Gamang in Jamaica, but the Gamang ship came from Suriname. The another connection we have is, for example, also with Maroons in Trinidad. Because of the way we live, we have certain specific, how do you say it? We have specific things, elements which you can see back by being Maroons. For example, when we give thanks, we do it by libation. When you go to a Maroon in Jamaica, in Trinidad, America, anywhere you will go and meet a Maroon, the way they pray to the Lord, to God, is by doing a libation, by using things out of the nature like fruits, plants, by singing, by dancing. So that's one of the connections we have. But we also have like connection between or amongst ourselves with organizations. We did the Maroon Calling event. We even go all the way to the United Nations for the Maroon people to be rightfully noticed by organizations like the United Nations. So culturally, we are connected, but also based on how do you say it, education, sharing, etc. We are connected as Maroon people. Yes.
The Maroons Day is also celebrated in those countries as well. Is it shared?
Yes.
You said you are connected, and I'm asking on whether the Maroons Day is also celebrated on the same day by those very other countries that have the Maroons.
What is celebrated?
Maroons Day. Our producer showed to us that you people you have the Maroons Day, and I was wondering whether the same Maroons Day
Yes.
is shared amongst other countries that also have the Maroons.
No. So the Maroon Day we have in Suriname is we have 2 days where Maroon celebrate actually. We have Maroon Day and we have Sama Kadaka. These days are the rememberings, the day we remember the treaty signing. In 1760, the Okanisi tribe signed the treaty with the colonizers, and in 1672, the Samaka people. So it's specifically for Suriname. But what happens is that all over the Caribbean, Maroons are invited to celebrate with us because one of the different things in Suriname one of the differences in Suriname is the treaty signing. Not all of the Maroons in the Caribbean got the chance to sign a treaty. And actually, I shouldn't say got a chance. Not all of them wanted to sign a treaty. So it's that in on the 10th October 1760 and on 19th September 1762, we signed treaties freeing ourselves from the colonizers. So that's what we are celebrating on Maroon Day.
This very line, it's two specific questions. It's in one of them
Yes.
is in line with the indigenous people that were there before all of you people were taken to. I mean, your descendants before they were taken to Suriname. Who were these people? The indigenous people, because say for states, you hear about the Red Indians who were in Suriname before you people.
So the first peoples, the Amar Indian, the Arawaka, Karaiba. So basically, if you go all the way back in history, you would know that Columbus didn't come and found things out. All the things they are saying like Columbus saw when he came or he is the first one to. It's not true. You had the Incas, you had the Mayas, you already had Indian people living in the Americas. And in Suriname, we had the Caraibal, the Arawaka, the Trios. These were the first peoples already living here when the European people came. The European people first tried to like enslave them, and when that wasn't successful enough for the European, then they got Maroons out of Africa. Not Maroons, sorry. Then they got African people out of Africa to work for them at the plantations. So you already had Indian people here. And the African people they got were mostly from, for example, the Krumantis. They came from Krumantan, which is at the Gold Coast. You had the Papa Negroes. They came from Daume. We also have a maroon village called Daume. still in Suriname as we speak. And you had the Luangu, which came from Angola. And you still have people speaking Luangu. The Chromantis are from the Akan, out of Africa, the Akan group, but you also have elements of the Ashanti and the Wasas. So it's a mix of different ethnical groups in Africa. And we also mix elements of the first people in our religion, in our clothing, in for example, the way we make cassava. When we make cassava bread, all of the bitter cassava, all of the water is drained out of it. To do so, we didn't have that information. We learned that from the first peoples. So there are certain things which are mixed.
We proceed.
I can hear.
Yeah, but
The,
proceed. Oh, okay. Okay, before he comes to share his question, I want to also ask, how have you
Yes.
maintained, rather avoided the intermarriages? Because when we follow the Maroons, you have maintained, I mean, you're the same people. We do not seem to see colored in quotes. Let's say about the intermarriages between the Maroons and other indigenous tribes, as in, how do you avoid that to ensure that your numbers, and I mean, you remain and keep it Maroons, no mixed blood, nothing? How did you maintain that?
So that wasn't really maintained because for example, my great grandfather was Amerindian, but if you see my hair, it's like this short. So I don't have anything Amerindian left. So it's just that you don't see it sometimes. You have, for example, what they called in the Maroons, they say lebibe, which means red belly. And red belly comes from an Amerindian woman. So Maroons are mixed. It's just that the traditional way of a Maroon is that the man is allowed to marry more than one wife. In only the Matawai group that's not allowed. But in the other five tribes, Maroon traditionally is allowed to have more than one wife based on Jewish traditions and based on African traditions sometimes. And this Maroon man living in his village can have, for example, a wife in his village, but if he also goes to an Indian village and he gets a wife from there, he is also allowed to have an Indian wife. So you have people which are pure Maroon, but most of the people in Suriname are actually mixed somewhere, even if it's not their grandfather, but maybe their great grandfather. So you have like a lot of people who are mixed. Another thing where it's with is the fact that Maroons didn't always travel to town. They lived among themselves in the bushes. And that's where the villages and the ethnical group um, was formed like so pure because you didn't have anything else to choose from than from your own ethnical group or cultural group actually because mixing with the Amerindian was something that always happened. And in the later years, when they started coming to town, they also mixed with other ethnical groups. They mixed with Europeans, they mixed with Indian, they mixed with Javanese. So you have like Sambos, Mulatta. Suriname is like this, a whole mix. But for the Maroons, we still have Maroons, which are what you could say pure based on the fact that they didn't come to town like
quick one. I mean, I think this, from me, this could be one of the last ones. Who are these Papa Negros? Papa Negros. And thereafter, definitely my colleague will, will also have his questions to you. Who are the Papa Negros?
The Papa Negros is one of the groups which is mentioned mostly because they didn't even they didn't even work like for it's a bit exaggerated, but they didn't even work like for days, you could say, because out of when they came out of Africa, they were fighting. They were
Seem to lose your sound. Kindly.
team. So when they came here, the first chance they got, they went out to the bushes. And the village they have is called Daume. That's one of the villages of the Papa Negros. And till today, in Daume, if you are a white, I won't say European, but if you are a white or a white descendant, you are not allowed to go into that village. That's still a rule till 2023. It's still a rule that if you are a white person, you are not allowed to enter. You're not even allowed to go to the shore of this village. You try it, but if anything happens, the consequences are for you itself.
Thanks,
So
Priscilla. We're crossing to my
certain
colleague
traditions are not
to also
just
have his questions to you. And then, literally to say, we are remaining with, rather, 13 minutes to, to 8 p.m. Ugandan time, where we shall be closing our show. But I want to cross to my colleague, Rogers, to ask you some of the questions that he has for you also.
I just have a couple of questions. And one is, you seem to have a very kind of, sort of a big multilingual country. You have a lot of tribes. You have the Amerindian Indians. You talked about the Europeans. There are Chinese that were there even back in the 1700s. You have the ones of the African descent. You have the Indians. There's a lot of culture in Suriname. Do you have some issues with culture conflicts like we are seeing in Guyana, where you have the Indians and the blacks at loggerheads? Is that happening in Suriname?
okay. So we have like every country has like discrimination. So we have discrimination amongst peoples or amongst ethnical groups. We have sayings like all black people are robbers. Indian people like to do this. Japanese people like to do that. We have that. But what we don't have is like religious battles or religious protests. For example, we have Goede Vrijdag, Good Friday, the Friday before Easter, and we have Pagwa, which is the powder festival, which came from India. When the Friday before Easter, Good Friday, where everybody is supposed to eat fish, and the Pagwa Day are on the same day, they talk among themselves. The last time it was in 2002, and the two religious group came together and said, listen, we are going to do this and this so that both religious groups can enjoy their day. Another example of how we live amongst each other is, for example, the fact that the Muslim, when we have Idul Adha, which is a feast.
We are losing your sound. We keep losing you, sort of.
Protest in Suriname saying, hey, why are you slaughtering cows or something like that? So on religious based, we don't have protests or fights amongst each other. The only thing which can maybe have people fighting in Suriname.
We are losing you again. We can't
In
hear you.
19
Your sound
Yeah, we seem to lose you.
is not coming.
Yes?
Your sound you
proceed,
had
now,
broken,
please.
but we can finish that point
Yes.
because time
So
is
the
against us.
first
So we can.
political group was in 1923. And in 1923, when we had that political group, it was named the Muslim Party. The other groups who came after were Negro Party, Indian Party. They were all based on ethnical groups. It's in later years that they changed the names to National Party, Herforum. So they changed the names. But in the beginning, it was very ethnic based. So when we are talking politics and when people are sharing on their political party, it may look like it's an ethnic fight, but that's not it. It's because the political parties are based. But when it comes to religion, we live very peacefully amongst each other. We don't have religious fights. For example, Christianity, when they went to the Maroons, they allowed the Maroons, for example, to add certain traditional things in their Christianity process. For example, they put when someone dies after 8 days, they put a table behind the house where the ceremony is being held with different kinds of food, etc. That's allowed in certain Christian communities. So when it comes to religion, we have that. The only issues between people is mostly based on politics.
Had one more, but not particularly in the line of tribal conflicts and relations. You have been in Africa before. I think was it
Ghana,
Ghana? Yeah, you have been in Ghana before. Did you find any people who speak the same languages as you do? And how does that now contribute to the culture and the heritage of the Surinamese?
So I didn't because I myself I don't know how to speak Kromanti, and I also don't know how to speak Luangu, but there were certain words. For example, the naming of the boys and girls based on the day they were born. I myself would be Afua because I was born on a Friday, and one of the tour guys told me who I was based on my name, and that's something is which is also done traditionally in Suriname. Based on the day you were born, you get you either can see back which name is meant for you. For example, Wednesday is Kwaku, so you have different thing. That's one of the main things I saw in Ghana. Another thing is the way we wear our clothes. For example, this is a pangi, and you have different pangis or clothing which is wrapped around the waist. We wear them here the same way. Um, the fact that when we have the segment of drums, we have like a leading drum. You also have that here in Suriname. Um, so I saw certain things connecting us to Ghana, and that was for me, especially also when we went to the door of no return. That was also an emotional moment because then you realize how far we have, how far we came from, and how difficult it has been to still have certain elements out of Africa, and in this case, out of Ghana.
Also, since you come from the Ministry of Tourism, which now is more about, promoting the culture and all that, I wanted you to highlight a few things that are so important in your culture or in the country of Suriname that someone should be interested in coming and visiting, why someone should be coming, what are the interesting things they should be expecting to find in Suriname?
Suriname is actually promoted as sometimes some certain touristic promotion videos, they say come to the Africa of South America, or come see pure Africa, which is not nice to African people. But sometimes they say, "Come see pure Africa in Suriname," because the villages we have are traditional when it comes to food, when it comes to anything we could have kept from Africa. We have it in its purest form. Another thing is the fact that you can see in Suriname a mosque beside a synagogue. It's something you don't see very often in the world, and even if you would see it, it may not be as peaceful as it is here. We have big festivals, for example, Oruyari Festival, and that's where everybody comes together, drinks together, of course, with a limited person, but you get to be free on the last day of the year, 31st of December, and everybody comes together. Our music, um, you can see the world in Suriname. So that's one of the main reasons why you should come to Suriname. For the people living in Africa, you should come to Suriname so that you can see that we still have the connection and the elements of Africa. For the people living, for example, in Europe, you should come and see the rest of the world. It's cheaper. You don't have to go to India, China, Java, Indonesia to see all of these ethnic groups. You can come to Suriname and see them in full effect and in full brightness, and I think the history of this country, but also the elements connected to it, to our heritage, is an important reason to come to Suriname.
Wants
It's
to
a
see
United
the world.
Nations. So it's a United Nations with
If someone
lots
wants
of.
to see the world, they should come to Suriname. They will find everyone there. That's interesting. I have one more. You have you have preserved sort of the nature. We are in a situation worldwide now that we have a problem of climate change. We have trees being cut down and all that kind of stuff. How have you managed to preserve this whole environment and that whole culture for this long? How are you keeping it?
Especially forests.
Especially forests, yes. Maybe we'll learn a few, one or two things from you.
Suriname is the most forested country, and we don't have that like just because. We are most forested because of the way the people living in the interior use the woods they live in. We have like when we farm traditionally. So we chop down a certain area which we are going to plant. After that period of time, we leave it, we call it haugong, which means old farm, and we leave it like that. Then we go to another place, farm there, and when the first one we left behind has grown, we come back. In English, they say slash and burn. So that's the way we use it, as Maroon and people from Indian roots, Amerindian roots. A bigger issue we have now is like the gold rush. Suriname has always been a country known from different stories, from El Dorado to anything with about gold, and of course our gold is has a very high percentage, so it's very expensive. We now have that different people come to Suriname to work, to get gold. So that's one of the issues we are actually trying to deal with now, because that has a bigger impact on the environment, and it has a big impact on climate change. But when it comes to the way we keep our forests, the forests can be kept based on the fact that the Maroons and the Amerindian treat their the area they live in traditionally by farming in the most traditional way, which is the best way to farm instead of going with big machines and cutting off everything and farming and farming and farming and farming till you can't farm anymore. They give the earth time to grow back, and then they come. Then they switch between farms. So that's something people can learn from the Amerindians and Maroons. And of course, it's a political issue basically to look on the climate change. Hey, if we are dealing with climate change, how are we going to like make sure even if we are doing gold, how does the gold protect us again from not having any tree anymore and things like that. So that's it a little in a nutshell.
We just, I have just one last question for you. But before I go into that last question,
Yes.
I would definitely ask, rather read, and you should forgive me for the mispronunciation of of this name. Amongst the comments, which, and I'm just going to read one, Mr. Andwell Rose, I don't know whether it's Rosenaut or something like that, who says that one of the strongest women in our great country, Suriname. Yeah, this is some bit of appreciation of perhaps some of the works that you have done. Precisely, how does one who hails from Africa cross to Suriname? As in, where do you have specific embassies in some of the African countries? Is it a visa on entry? How can one come from Africa or any other continent to Suriname in the event that they want to come as tourists? And that would definitely be our closing question. And yeah.
Yes. Coming out of Africa, we don't have straight flights yet to Suriname. We have a very powerful woman in Ghana right now working as an ambassador, Miss Fidelia Grand Galong. So I know for one that she is working with her colleagues to see and maybe get a way that we can have straight flights. But for now, you would have to either go to America, the United States, to come to Suriname, or you will have to go to Europe to come to Suriname. We don't have straight flights yet. We have, for example, with Ghana, people traveling with a diplomatic or governmental passport, they don't have to get a visa to go to Ghana. And the other way around, no country at the moment, no country has to like get a visa to come to Suriname. You only have the tourist card, which you can buy online, and then you can visit Suriname. And the government chose to do this to actually open the gate for different diaspora people to come and visit Suriname. So if you're coming from Africa, it's still a bit difficult because you will have to get a visa from one of the European countries and travel from the European country to Suriname, or get a visa from the United States, a travel visa, to go through the United States and then come to Suriname or Panama. So you always have another country in between. But we hope that as on that part, I hope that it soon will be history, and that people from Africa will be able to travel straight to Suriname to see and enjoy this beautiful country.
30 seconds to give us your closing remarks, and then we shall wish the Surinamese a wonderful day, even when in Africa, in fact, most of African countries, it's already night. So we will definitely ask you to share with your viewers your last, your last words or any information that is deemed very important, and then shall come back to our studios and say goodbye for now.
Okay. If I'm allowed, I would like to do my closing remarks in my traditional Maroon language. Is that okay?
Very, very okay. That's why we're here to share. I mean, it's Afro-Caribbean link, so we want to link into your languages and also our culture. So go ahead.
Okay. Den sama fumi pete ude na fawe me bali wale spekyodi e me giugan tangi fudi ube wani meke bangi angawi angale si peki me bali gote na pe yesi saye bika afikan nena wi afikan nen na sanifu wi di diamiati mi aido apia ude mi aishu mami sabitaki lobi fumi anga dufu na asefi na megiu ahala anga kakiti bikataki saide sentengwe gwena tase wafe getete pio komoto teke adei futide da megiu gantangi anga lesipeki mi nagandi nagawang nasabimang mami giu gantangi fuju meke bangyangami angale speki gantangi fu
May God bless all of us and bless, bless all of us, Africa in particular, and also the Caribbeans. And you ask me what Okido means, then I'll tell you what it means. Okido.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye to our viewers, and then we shall be.
Thank you so much, Afua. That was very important. I will certainly try to Google some of these words, and the next time I'll definitely be speaking some of them. But thank you so much for making the time and talking to us about your heritage and culture. It is really interesting, and that language, I thought you'd.
Yeah, we shall definitely look for her some other time. And being a tourist, deputy director in charge of tourism, the Ministry of Tourism and Transport, we have lots of things to also ask from her as time goes by.
Yes.
For now, we should wish our viewers a fantastic evening in Africa and a good day in Caribbean, most of the Caribbean countries.
Yes.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.